Hey guys, Stefan here. Just wanted to do a video to update on some of the articles that came out over the last week in Bitcoin. So this is in early June 2018. We've got about 17,069,000 Bitcoins that have been mined out of the 21 million total. We've got about 10,000 full nodes that are reachable. The current price is 7,600 US dollars, or around 10,000 in Australian dollars. And also just keep in mind long-term thinking. So if you bought and held for 1 year, you've made 2x your money. You've doubled. If you've held for 2 years, you've gone 13 times what your initial investment was. And if you've held for 5 years, you are now up 58 times your money. So today I've got 3 articles that I'd just like to talk through. Okay, so first up we've got Bitcoin Past and Future by Murad Mahmudov and Adam Tash. So this is a great article in terms of overview of where Bitcoin has come from and some of the current arguments and current thought. So some of the key sections that I'll just highlight now. It's got a section on Bitcoin as money, and so crypto Austrians like that Bitcoin has a fixed money supply. It's anti-fractional reserve banking, and by definition there is no lender of last resort. Any sort of mainstream economic fears of deflationary spiral, we would set that aside and say, well, no, actually it's more like we recognize that if you defer your spending into the future, well then you're merely just pushing that production out into the future as well. So that's not really a big worry. There's discussion on the scaling debate as well. So with Bitcoin, a block limit size at the time, later became a block weight limit, was put in at 1 megabyte limit to prevent spam or denial of service attacks. This limit became a key contention point, and the small block or Bitcoin side was really saying, no, we need to maintain decentralization. We don't want to have to trust third parties. We want Bitcoin to remain government resistant. Whereas the big blocker side, the Bcasher side, tends to think that all scaling should just happen on the chain. So to sort of dive a little further into that, the point here is that full nodes can reject blocks that are sent to them from the miners that are outside of the consensus. So for example, if the miner was to try and tamper with the issuance rate, or if they wanted to change the maximum number of Bitcoins from 21 million to 50 million, all the full nodes would reject that block and say, no, that block is not valid. So the Bcasher view, the Bitcoin Cash or the large block view is, oh no, only mining nodes matter, and that, you know, they sort of venerate Satoshi's writings to this almost religious text level. And I take issue with that, because when Satoshi wrote the original white paper in 2008, there were no mining pools. It was a totally different understanding. It wasn't miners and non-mining nodes. There were all these other things that he just could not have foreseen. So it's absurd to just try and point back to 2008 and say, oh, well, everything else should scale just like that. The other things that get brought up in this article are some discussion around Bitcoin maximalism and some of the various arguments and points around that, which is quite a good discussion and well worth a read as well. It's also a rejection of this concept that there will be 10,000 currencies. Really, people will go towards the best money. They'll go to the one with the highest hash power, giving it the best security, the best network effects, the best liquidity, the best market capitalization, and the most number of what is colloquially become known as hodlers of last resort. The people who will provide a bit of a natural price floor for Bitcoin because they just want to hold it, because it's more scarce and works better as a money than other potential monies. Lastly, in this article, there's a bit of discussion around upper layers, such as Lightning Network. So yeah, overall, great article. I'd recommend you have a look at it. Next up is Digital Gold / Digital Cash Network Effects by my friend Pierre Rochard, and he wrote this as a response to Kyle Samani's post on the network effects of stores of value. And so Kyle is making this argument that digital cash has a better network effect than digital gold, but really it's more like there's a bit of confusion here, and what he's talking about when he's talking about digital gold is a bit of an incomplete definition of money, and when he's talking about digital cash, he's really more talking about just a payments network. And so to understand this, we have to see how most people are talking about this versus how it really is. Most people are sort of separating these various functions of money, so store of value, medium of exchange, unit of account. And people talk about them like they're very distinct, but really they're all sort of intertwined. And so when people talk about this idea of digital gold, it's a bit more like a meme. It's not like a specific aim for a crypto token. So Bitcoin is really a combination of things that are all slowly taking root together over time through these network effects. And so Pierre does a great job in explaining this sort of concept in his article. And so it's almost like Kyle is misunderstanding that digital cash, or he's sort of misunderstanding that gold is only the store of value, when really, if gold is the unit of account also, well then it's all of these things are taking root at the same time. So the other thing is also around the discussion of the payment network. The problem with that is the marginal cost for having more and more payment processors is quite low. The merchant is normally quite indifferent to these things, whether it was converted from Dogecoin or Dash. What matters more is what is it denominated in. And if you think from a total market point of view, the market for global sound money is much, much larger. The market for global wealth, for example, was about 270 or 280 trillion last year. And also, it comes to liquidity. It comes to how much volume is there in the token or money that you're trying to use. So yeah, overall great article, definitely worth a read. So finally is the article Exploring Lightning Network Routing by Brian Vu, and this was posted over at the L&D blog. So quick overview for the newbies. Lightning Network is a layer 2 payment network that creates payment channels between users, merchants, exchanges, banks, anyone else who is a user in this system, and all of these transactions will settle back against layer 1 Bitcoin network. And the short version of this is that it will enable massive scale at tiny fractions of the cost of an on-chain transaction. So some of the examples that are coming out now, you're seeing people can buy a coffee using Lightning Network and they're paying something like 7.8 satoshis in routing fees, or even less in some cases, which works out to, you know, fractions of a US dollar cent, not even 1 cent. So some of the interesting concepts from this article were just discussion around channel balance, the fact that channels can be left open for months or years at a time, and that there are natural reasons why different participants in this economy would have inbound flows versus outbound flows, and there's a good graph in this article as well. There's a discussion around the different types of nodes as well. So you would have end user nodes versus routing nodes. There might be some that are more gateway nodes, and then others that are more like a bridge node. So there's a really interesting discussion in this article, so it's well worth a read. And the idea is that through opening, you know, your first payment channel or a few payment channels, then the payment will multi-hop through multiple stages to get through and be routed to its final recipient. And so some of the analysis that they've conducted shows that, you know, the network could have 10 to 15 hops in diameter, and that could support billions of users with fees well under 1 cent per transaction. So pretty promising stuff. The other cool stuff that they mentioned in this article is some of the discussion around autopilot. So this can be done in a way where you, the user, wouldn't have to think about it so much. It's basically automating that process of finding those routing nodes and opening up the channels unbeknownst to you. You just set up a wallet and off it goes, and it just does that. So I'm really excited about this. I think it's a very exciting space, so it's well worth a read of this article as well. So thanks for watching, guys. If you've got any feedback, definitely let me know on Twitter @StefanLivera. If you enjoyed the video, if you found it informative, please give me a like, comment and subscribe. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.